All right, guys, welcome back. And here we are looking at an example where we're asked to sketch the graph of y equals x squared plus 3x plus 2. Now remember, in order for us to sketch the graph of a quadratic equation, we need to know 5 things. We need to know whether it is a smile or a frown, and that is going to be the value of a, whether it's positive or negative. We need to know the roots, which are essentially the values of x when we solve it. We need to know the maximum point, which is k, and we need to know the equation of the line of symmetry, and we also need to know where the curve cuts the y-axis. So 5 things we need to know. Again, we need to know whether the curve is going to be a smile or a frown. We need to know the roots. We need to know the maximum point. We need to know the equation of the line of symmetry, and we need to know where the curve cuts the y-axis. So let's go ahead and solve this question. So let's take a look at the solution here. Now the first thing we need to do is check to see if the specific quadratic equation in question is it in the general form, yes or no. And we need to ask this question because we need to find out what the values are of a, b, and c. Now if you look carefully here, again, one goes there, you can clearly see that this quadratic equation is in the general form, which means we can easily tell what a is. In this case, a is positive 1. And the fact that a is positive 1 indicates that we are going to get a smile, because a is positive 1. So right away, I know what the curve is going to look like. The next thing is b is positive 3 and c is positive 2. So we need to accurately determine what those values are before we move forward. Okay. All right, so I have a, so I found one thing already. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have a checklist of items. So let me have a checklist of items. So a, my checklist of things that I've found, and I need to know 5 things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need to know 5 things in order for me to sketch the graph of that quadratic equation. Now, I know that a is positive 1, and I'm going to get a smile. So that's the first thing I know. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and as I find the things that I need, I'm just going to put it on my checklist. All right, so let's move on. Now, the next thing we need to find are the roots, and the roots are simply the solution to the values of x. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take x squared plus 3x plus 2 and equate it to 0, and then go ahead and solve to determine what the values of x are. So there are several ways you can do this. You can, if you wish, write this in a completed square form and go ahead and solve it, or you can use a quadratic formula method and go ahead and solve it, or you can use a factorization method if you think it can be factorized. All right, and there's always a way to test to see if it can be factorized as well. And the way to do that is very simple, right? To test to see if it can be factorized, we simply do this check. This tells me whether or not I can solve this by factorization method. So I can simply plug in these values here. That's 3 all squared minus 4, a is 1, and c is 2. And this is going to give me 9. And minus 4 times 1 is minus 4 times 2 is minus 8. And that's going to give me 1. And I'm going to get a nice whole number from this. I'm going to get a nice whole number from that. And because of that, the square root of this number is going to give me a nice whole number. And because of that, because I'm not getting any decimals, I know that I can solve this by factorization method. And that is what we use to check, as was indicated before in the previous lesson. So let's go ahead now and solve this quadratic equation by a factorization method. So we know what a, b, and c are. So again, In this particular case here, B is 3 and AC is, this is 1 here, so that's 1 times 2, which is 2. The factors of 2 are 1 and 2. So we know that we can break up this into those two numbers. That would be 1x and 2x. So very, very simple. So let's go ahead and do that. So x squared plus 1x plus 2x plus 2 equals 0. So when you look at these two, x is common. When you look at these two, positive 2 is common. And then we'd end up with x plus 2, x plus 1 equals 0. And then we can break off to get our two answers now. So when x plus 2 equals 0, then x is equal to negative 2. So I have one value of x, and therefore I have one root here. So when x plus 1 equals 0, x is equal to negative 1. So now I have my two roots. So the answers for x are also referred to as roots. And I can go ahead and put that on my checklist that the roots are negative 2 and negative 1. Very, very straightforward and very, very simple. So the roots are x equal negative 2 and x equal negative 1. So the roots are negative 2 and negative 1. So I have the roots, right? Now, looking at this here, I can easily determine what C is. So I can put that there. C is normally the last thing that we need to look at, but it doesn't really matter the order, but I'm giving you a recommended order to make it easier when you begin to sketch. Now, C is obviously positive 2, and this is where the curve cuts the y-axis. C is always where the curve cuts the y-axis, and the curve is going to cut the y-axis at positive 2. So I now have 3 pieces of information out of the 5. The next thing I need to know is what h is. So I can go ahead and determine what h is very easily now. So let's go ahead and find h. All right, so h is simply b over 2a. So in this particular case, we have b being 3 and a being 1. So h is essentially 3 over 2. Now, remember, we need to find the equation of the line of symmetry, and the equation of the line of symmetry is x equals negative h. So whatever h is, it's a negative of that. So if h is positive, it's a negative value. And if h is negative, the negative of a negative value is positive. So that means the equation of the line of symmetry is going to be the negative of positive 3 over 2. So that's the equation of the line of symmetry. X equals negative 3 over 2. With the same thing as saying x equals negative 1.5. So that is the next thing that I have on my checklist. So the equation of the line of symmetry is x equals negative 3 over 2, and this is the equation of the line of symmetry, which is exactly the line, which is the line that is going to cut the parabola exactly in half. Okay, now the next thing we need to find is k, and because it's a smile, because it's going to look like this, we know that it's going to have a minimum point, right? Because it's a smile. So we're going to go ahead now and find k and get that out of the way. So let's go ahead and find k now. So k is equal to 4ac minus b squared over 4a. So what we're going to do is plug in those values. So a is 1, c is 2, b is positive 3 times 4 times 1. So take your time, don't get mistakes. 4 times 1 is 4, times 2 is 8, and minus, and 3 all squared is positive 9. That's 4. So k is going to be equal to minus 1 over 4 which makes k equal to negative a quarter. So the value of k is negative a quarter. So we now have our final piece of the puzzle. So we have here that k is equal to negative a quarter. And because it's a smile, k is minimum in this case, not maximum. So this is the minimum value, and it's minimum because it's a smile. So this is the lowest point of the curve. So now that I have all of the pieces of information ready, I can now go ahead and sketch the curve. Now, I'm going to stop the video here because I don't want there to be a storage issue on the phone. And then when we come back, we're going to use this information to sketch the graph of y equals x squared plus 3x plus 2. All right?